if the uncommitted protest vote cast in Michigan tells us anything, it is this, that Biden and the Democrats have plenty to worry about, and the message that the voters seem to have sent out is that Biden needs to change his course on Israel's war in Gaza, or he could end up losing a significant chunk of his support. Parallels are already being drawn between Hillary Clinton's poll debacle in 2016 and what may happen with President Biden come November, because most believe it is going to be a Biden-Trump rematch. So the question simply is, how worried should Biden and the Democrats be in your assessment?
See, firstly, we need to understand that Michigan is a very, very important swing state. In fact, it was on the forefront of ensuring a Biden victory in last presidential election and was also responsible for Trump's sneaking through in 2016. Having said that, there's almost 13.8% of voters who have voted as non-committed. Now, this is more a signal to President Biden that he needs to change his policies, because Biden, despite international pressure, has withstood and has refused to pressurize Israel to stop its aggression. Even in United Nations Security Council, the US has actually vetoed the resolutions for immediate ceasefire. So I think this is a symbol, this is actually a signaling to Biden that he needs to change its tack as far as Gaza and its policy on Israel-Hamas conflict is concerned. Presidential election is still too far off. It is in November, and I think there are still almost 9 months, which is quite a long period of time. More significantly, most of these Democratic voters who are actually voting non-committed also know that if it's going to be a Trump versus Biden contest, then if they're voting, if you're not voting for President Biden, they are actually ensuring President Trump's coming back to power. And that could be far more damaging to their cause than President Biden and Democratic dispensation could be. Because Trump's stance on Israel-Palestine was, I think, even more aggressive in some ways. And in fact, some of the advances which Israel made, shifting capital to Jerusalem, etc., was done during Trump presidency. So as far as this is concerned, that is the state. As far as this poll about Michelle Obama being favored or something, this is, I think, more speculative because she's not a candidate at the moment. And President Biden is almost certain to be the Democratic Party's candidate. Trump's case, yes, he is almost certain to be Republican Party's candidate, though Nikki Haley continues to be in the fray, hoping that there will be some legal bar to Trump's contesting or something. She's hoping some miracle would happen, which would probably twist or move people away from Donald Trump. So that is how it is. But there is no doubt that a significant chunk of Democratic Party supporters are Arabs and Muslims who actually are unhappy with the way President Biden has gone about supporting Israel's disproportionate response to what happened on 9th October. There is no doubt that Israel had a right to respond, but I think it has gone too far. And that probably stems from the fact that Netanyahu knows that the day war stops, he'll have to go. And he knows that his chair is at the stake. So he wants to probably drag on the war, continue the war, take more aggressive stance so that he could possibly win back some of the Israeli voters who are extremely upset with him for this sort of a major flaw that has happened, that something which was so serious they ignored and their intelligence could not report. Whatever happened on that particular day, a large chunk of the blame lies on his shoulders.
The question that many are now asking, given the uncommitted protest vote in Michigan, is this: could Biden's support for Israel's war in Gaza cost him and the Democratic Party the presidency in November 2024? As somebody who is in the United States, how do you look at how the election is shaping up and what many of the Democrats are now saying particularly about Biden's handling of the war?
Well, I would start by taking a strong exception to the idea that the Jewish vote has some sort of a magical stronghold on both parties. First of all, the majority of Jewish voters in the US are Democrats, and they are very committed Democrats. Affluence has very little to do with that. Yes, there are some very affluent individuals, donors to the Democratic Party, but the majority of the Jewish community in the US is the middle class. I would also say that the committed Christian pro-Israel vote is overwhelmingly Republican. So there is no sudden disbalance over who is supporting whom. These groups of people do not necessarily cancel out the demographic in Michigan that has that is behind the uncommitted vote. Having said all of that, that uncommitted vote, while indeed a strong message from that particular group, is not necessarily a harbinger of a loss in November for Joe Biden, precisely because this group is very unlikely to turn to anyone else or even to stay home, because Trump is their worst nightmare. Especially if they're basing their predictions of future policies in Trump's second term based on his previous policies in the first term. Whether or not that's accurate to do so is a different question, but most likely this is how they are assessing the situation. So Biden shouldn't fear the loss of confidence in those voters, though of course concerns from any group of his constituencies are a legitimate factor considered in any election cycle, since they are part of his base. Still, the answer to any concern over these groups or their effort to pressure Biden into a different policy position that what he considers best for the United States as a whole, not for Israel, not for the Jewish constituents, but for the US, and that is part of his consideration, is to court more moderate voters who are disenchanted or who are likely to stay home for other reasons. For instance, those of the Democratic voters who are disappointed in both Biden and Trump for policy reasons, or who are concerned about his age. Those are the groups he should be courting. He should be reaching out to independent voters, and he should actually be moving the party closer to the center and not trying to courting the most progressive voters. That is actually the policy that could cost him more votes come November. Moderation and reaching across the aisle is the key to securing more votes for either candidate, whether it's Trump or Biden. Neither of them seems to be pursuing this tactic at the moment, so the turnout is very likely to be very low, and a lot may come down to the very last days of the race, when each candidate is looking to galvanize more early voters, regardless of the actual policies or issues at hand at the moment.